Today we're going to be painting this handsome young man right here, Superman. I'm your host, T. Rent, and this is Tennessee Liquid. So to start off with, you can't have a model without having a model. So here's a pile of parts that I made on my Anycubic 3D resin printer. So you want to start off by putting them on a little stick. This gives you a good foundation in which to prop your parts up. And then I take some Vallejo black and I primer them. You must primer your parts or your paint will rub off. I know from experience, so just prime your parts. And after you get your parts primered, then that's where the fun begins. This is a cape. The cape was a little aggravating to me, but I did eventually get it, and I think it turned out pretty well. To start off, we're going to jump in on the base, because every good statue needs a base. So what we've done is, this is going to be snow around these rocks. So the color of snow is white. So I just took white and just sprayed all the snow with it. Once you get your white sprayed down on your base, you want to move on to the protruding rocks or shooting rocks or poking rocks or whatever you want to call them. We want to move on to highlighting those. I started off with a castle gray. You just want to take your paint and dry brush it over all the nooks and crannies and the high spots on the rocks to build up a better look for the rocks. Because just a plain old black rock is just a plain old black rock. It's boring and it's just got no color in it. But you take just different colors of gray, so just lighter as you go. You just want to build up lighter and lighter colors. Just remember when you dry brush to leave some of the black, because you don't want to cover up all the black, because you got to have shadows of your rocks. On to the snow texture, I was in my local hobby shop and I seen this and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try. I've never used this stuff, but it's actually pretty neat. It smells a little funny, but it's like rubbing on marshmallows. Just don't eat it. I've never thought of snow in a can, but there it is, and it looks pretty neat. And with that, we can call this base done. Moving on to painting the suit of this guy, I'm gonna call him Superman, because if I say his actual name, then everybody will know who he is. I started off with a flat blue, and you just want to paint all of his suit blue. Next, I took a stormy blue just to highlight some of his "I'm jealous of" muscles. And you want to just turn your air pressure down just a little, just so enough to where you can barely spray and get into those little cracks and outline the muscles. At this point, I took a stormy blue, which is just a little bit too dark for me, and I added just a little bit of white, a drop or two of white in it, to make it just a little bit lighter blue. And I took and airbrushed this from the top down and hit some of the high spots, you know, the top of the muscles, the top of the legs, the shoulders, and just highlighted them just to give it a little bit more depth. And it was at this point I realized that I had forgot something super important for Superman to have: his arms. I forgot to paint his arms. So when you're painting parts, make sure you get all the parts. I was in my local hobby shop again, and I run across this metallic paint by Folk Art, and I just happened to think, what would Superman look like with a shiny suit? You know, shiny, like from the crab from Moana. So I bought it. You can water this stuff down and makes it thin enough to spray through an airbrush, and then it gives a nice shiny surface to his suit. Now, I didn't want to bore you with showing me masking everything off, so I just went ahead and done it, and then I didn't video it. But you want to start off painting everything that was going to be red white, because you got to have a white base for your red to really pop. After you get your red laid down, you want to come back with some scarlet red and do a little highlight around the top of Superman's boot. And then you want to do the bottom of his shoes. I've never understood how Superman kept his shoes from getting dirty. But if you look, Superman's shoes are never dirty. Superman's got this little stripe that goes around his entire suit. I don't know if it's where his suit's put together, it's a seam or a stripe, or whatever you want to call it. I just felt like this needed to be a darker blue just to kind of give some depth to the overall look of Superman. So I painted the gold around Superman's belt and white in his S. But I figured something out. If you want to record something, you have to push the record button. After the first coat of yellow, I was really regretting my choice to use a flat yellow instead of a ink, because I had to put multiple layers on this to make it look right. Moving on to the skin tone, you want to take a white and what I'm calling a very fancy word, a zenithal highlight, and you spray it from the top down where your light source would be hitting the brightest. I'll take a pink, just any old pink color will do as long as it's a bright pink. And you want to spray that from the top down, kind of like you zenithal, but you don't want to cover up the complete white, but you do want to spray it from the top down. This adds a little color back into the flesh tone that you're fixing to put down. Then you want to take a transparent red and spray it from the underneath into where the shadows would be. Now we get to add the color of the flesh. I've used these colors from my Onyx for several models now, and I really like them. They spray good out of the gun and they look good when you get done. I started off with a tan flesh. Now you want to water these down about 50-50 so you can spray them pretty lightly, because you don't want to cover up all the pink and white that you just laid down before. Build your colors up as you go until you reach the desired color. Your second flesh color will be neutral flesh. It's a little bit lighter color than your tan flesh from the previous, so you want to spray this from the top down. And again, mix it 50-50 so you can just spray it lightly and build your color up. It's always good to make sure your skin tone matches the rest of the parts and they all look the same. For your final highlight, I used a gnome skin. Again, water this down 50-50 and just spray the highlighted spots where the light is the brightest. It's finally time to do the face. The head can make or break your model. If it comes out weird, then it just looks weird. I went ahead and painted his hair black gray and then put some reddish flesh on his lips. Now it's time to paint one of those fancy words again, the sclera. It's the part of the eye that is white, but you don't want to use pure white because your eye's not pure white. I used a highlight skin from my fairy flesh set just to give it a little bit darker color than just white. I used a black to make his eyebrows. You don't want to paint eyebrows straight because eyebrows are not straight. You want to make little marks on them to make them look like they got little hairs standing on them. And now it's time to move on to the eyes. Make sure you know where the character is looking before you paint your eyes. And you always want to start with a darker color. Start out by putting a little drop of dark color just to get the look that you're looking for and the direction that you're wanting. And then you just want to start off and just with a little ball of paint on end of your paintbrush and then just go out and make it bigger. Then you want to use a lighter color just to go in and paint the centers of that dark blue that you just put down. But you don't want to paint all the way around. You want to leave a little rim of dark blue around the outside of the light blue. And then you take a small amount of black, because if you look at your eyes, the center of your eyes are black. So you take a small amount of black and go right in the center the best you can to make that black part of your eye. And when you get all that done, you want to take pure white. Now I use a toothpick because I don't have a brush that small, but you may have a brush and that's perfectly fine. I did not, so I used the toothpick. And you want to put just a little bitty white dot in the corner of his eyes just to make like a little reflection in the corner of his eyes. And then when you get that, your eyes are done. So you go back and you put a gloss coat on his eyes and his lips to give them a little wet look, to make them look like normal eyes, because your eyes don't look dry, they're shiny. So that's why you put the clear coat on top of them, to make them look shiny. And once you get all that done, it's now time to glue his little curl or whatever you call that on his head. You know, the thing that the ladies like on his hair. So after you super glue that thing in and you get it in position, this thing was a little aggravating. It kind of didn't want to go where I wanted it to go because I didn't have the right hair gel, I guess. But eventually I got it to where I wanted it to go, and when I did, you can call this head done. With that being the final piece, we can now start assembling and call Superman a done model.